When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
From a tigerish test to a crushing in Cork, there is a lot to discuss in our penultimate episode of 2025. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby across the professional amateur men's and women's game in Ireland. As you can see on screen, if you're on YouTube, we've no David tonight, so it's a reversed emotional pendulum as Adam enters worse for wear, not just the Hurricanes jersey, and Ben is the one riding the crest for wave. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on. Adam, I'll let you start. That is a very nice jersey, and the right people in the comment section are going to be happy with it.
Yeah, do you know what? It's one of those like what have I not worn on a podcast yet? It's between this and last year's Japan kit because I've got two Japan kits. 'Cause why not? Um, but yeah, it's one of those that I was just like, yeah, I'll have it in hang. I picked it. I've got a nice one to wear for tomorrow. Oh no, sorry, I forgot that. For the context of Christmas for next week. For the context of Christmas, just a wee behind the curtain there. But yeah, hopefully my Christmas will have random jerseys galore. But knowing my family, they're like, you've got too much jerseys, but you can never have too much jerseys. So there we go.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Ben, myself and yourself were down in Cork the last day. Despite being two sections away from each other, we did manage to meet up because it was a bit messy, but not in the drunk sense or anything like that. But a fun weekend in Cork before we get into the rugby of it all.
Excellent weekend. I'm sure people who listen to this are well aware of the Cork limericking and the oh no, games can't be in Cork of it all. But excellent weekend, excellent stadium. Beamish in Cork is a different level from Beamish everywhere else, for the bits of it I can remember.
I think for legal reasons, because I used to work in a pub in Limerick that did very good pints of Beamish, I have to say, I poured a very good pint of Beamish, Ben. I
You
have to
did, to
say.
be fair to you, you did. You poured a lovely Beamish, but it doesn't quite have that Lee air to it, and it's excellent. You're missing something in the Shannon.
Potentially. And maybe that's why you have the seaweed stout, which is also very, very good. Of course, multiple stouts are available in Ireland.
There's a
Discover Ireland.
seaweed stout.
Yes, there is.
Yes,
What?
there's a seaweed stout. Do you know what? We might discuss that tomorrow. Sorry, next week on the
Next week.
Christmas show.
Next week.
Merry
Well,
Christmas,
gentlemen,
folks.
we promised it last week, so we will start in Cork as Munster breeze past Gloucester in front of over 36,000 spectators in Super Value, Porky Queeve. And Ben, just to give a little bit of context, because we will have viewers or listeners who are not Irish who may not get it, there is a meaning and a symbolism of this game, not just the fact that it was in Cork, but in a GAA stadium. I'm sure people can look it up, but just to kind of give it all in, it does mean more than just pool game versus Gloucester, which is so easy in Ireland to get caught up in, but it's way more than that.
It does. It's a huge event. Like in general, I suppose from Munster context, there hasn't been a home European game in Cork, which is Munster's biggest city for over 20 years at this point. On top of that, they put it in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which is Cork's GAA Gaelic Athletic Association sport. 40,000 people against the old enemy against an English team, which in Cork has an extra bit of history involved in it. They're the Rebels, they're the Rebel County. It was one of those things that hopefully will happen yearly. There's been calls for it to happen for years. I think you'll probably agree with me on this. All in, it was an excellent day. Historical for all the right reasons. Result aside, exactly what you want for a big Champions Cup game this side of the country. We've had our Crow Park games. Bring them all down to Parky Queeve. We've got a proper stadium for them now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, having been down there, I'd never been to a game in Cork before. I'd never been to Porky Queeve before. It was kind of funny actually talking to my dad, and he was like, I was at concerts, back when like himself and my mom were going out and
Was he at
whatever.
Michael Jackson?
He was at Michael Jackson actually. That was one of them. The two of them were at that one. So I was chatting to them about that. But like, I'd never been to Porky Queeve, and it is an unbelievable stadium. And one thing that struck me was as soon as we drove into town that afternoon, it was just red everywhere. It was Gloucester red, it was Munster red. And for a competition that we talk about kind of being on its knees, and it is like it is on its knees begging for its last rights. It still has games like these. And yes, we can be arrogant. We can talk about, well, Munster and La Rochelle was one of them, and Munster here was another one, and things like that. But old habits die hard, and because of that, old clubs and old traditional juggernauts die hard as well. And I think we kind of seen that with this one. But Adam, I suppose to just kind of get into the game, Munster never looked like losing this one. I think that's the big thing. They never looked like losing it. They weren't great, but it was kind of just that. I wouldn't say classic. It was far from a classic. Don't get me wrong. We're just that typical Munster. They grounded out. They got over the line. They kicked on, and like with the likes of Casey, Crowley, Nankerville playing really, really well, they can't really ask for too much more. They could have won by 50 points, but then if they won by 50, kind of like with Connacht later, we'd be like, well, what about the opposition? What about the competition? So kind of a weird one was like, actually 30 points is probably just about right. Thanks, lads.
Yeah, I think watching the game, it was really cagey. When you th when I saw like those, it was really cagey in certain aspects, and knowing Gloucester quite well because it sort of would follow them in a way. It was more of like an academy-ish team, but to say that would be a sort of disservice to how well they sort of played at that bit. But Munster dominated those last 15 minutes when they scored all those tries. That 30 points at the end of the day will do you so well in that Champions Cup. And to put a little Parky Queeve fact, my mum saw Prince there. My mum saw Prince there. Sorry. Just when you said about concerts, I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, anyway, good to go back to Munster. I thought it was a very good showing from them, and I feel like it's something that they need to kick on from, especially going into the league this week as well. And a big Interpro window, which is going to be huge for all the provinces as well. So having a sort of solid start to the Champions Cup, makes it that much nicer for them to sort of ease into those interpros, especially a bonus point win against Gloucester, who last year were a very, very good side. Not so much this year, but saying that the occasion was there. The weather wasn't great, was it? From what I remember,
it wasn't hectic. It
yeah,
was very windy. Like
yeah, it was
very,
very
very
windy.
windy.
Yeah, but everything plays a factor, and at the end of the day, they got it done. Casey, I thought, had a good game in terms of in terms of dominating the sort of around the ruck as well. But yeah, very good.
Yeah, well, I'll actually get on to Premier Sports and all them a little bit later on because they talked about Craig Casey, and actually it was only when I watched the game back because when you're at a game and you're up at the top of like a GA stand, it's a very different vantage point. So I watched it back and I did think Craig was excellent. But one man I do want to mention is Connor Barkley. And Ben, you can get very tribal here for a minute because he's from the same neck of the woods as you, same health club as yourself. But to lay it out in bare bones, if we don't even get sentimental, second professional game of rugby, 2 scrum penalties, won. One of them leads to a bonus point. Like that's a cool story. And it doesn't matter, like, yes, Glasgow are the story of the week and whatever, but that is a very, very cool story.
Yeah, like even before he came on, I was right above where the Munster subs were warming up. And he was actively shouldering Edwin a dogbo in their weird little jostling warm-up, sending a dogbo back. It was massacre level stuff.
It's something we would never do.
No,
Even the three of us hitting Edwin a dogbo at the same time.
Something people at AIL level have been saying for years don't do. And Bartley was like, you know what? No, this is actually kind of easy. He's on the pitch 20 seconds, first scrum penalty. And we've been a little bit under the pump in the front row for that game. A lot of issues, but that was one of my main ones. Bartley comes in, easy stuff. My second game, I can do this, no problem. There's been talk all week about like I think 42. Not some people elsewhere had a really nice piece on him from Birch, which people should listen to about his story and how he came to this point. We've been crying out for props in red. We now have one. We've one who's hungry. Couple of years left in him. If he keeps doing what he did on Saturday, get Bartley every week. Bring him in.
Definitely. And like as Bernard Jackman rightly pointed out, like he does not have the body of a 30-year-old because he's been playing AIL and he did a year in Australia, which isn't as like physically demanding as say if you're going up against, as Bert mentioned, like the Bulls every week for example.
And like
So
we've
it'll be
said on
very
this,
interesting.
the AIL is a very hard scrummaging league. It is, but this is the benefit of it. If you come from that, you can step into Champions Cup level. If you're good there, show your worth.
Yeah. And he's not the only one. Like he's not the only one in recent years that has stepped up. Like you think of Ivan Soroka at Leinster, Dylan Donlan at Leinster. Like they've both stepped in URC games and look fine. And I know people are like, well, I'm not sure who the Gloucester front row was. I was there. I'm not even sure who the Gloucester front row was or Loosehead prop was. But to have this experience, to have this moment, and like he's a Limerick kid. I know he's 30. He's older than me. He's not really a kid, but you know
No,
what I
he's a
mean.
kid.
Like
It's fine.
he's a Limerick lad, and like it is cool to see. And look, I think that kind of vibe, because these games are kind of very nothing, and it was always clear that Munster were going to win, and it was that kind of procession, like kind of thing. It could be so hard to dig into. Munster weren't great. They will have faults. They have flaws to iron out over the next 4 weeks. And Mossy Lawler or Cliff McMillan actually said after the game, the one thing he wants to see keep improving week on week is set piece. Do you know across the board he wants to see set piece improve? But it was an important victory. And I suppose, Adam, just to kind of bring you back in there, because I kind of want to spend a lot of time on this particular game, because it was kind of our game of the week, as it turned out with the storyline. The performances of, say, Casey, we mentioned, Nankerville, Mike Haley, and even, in the pack, the likes of Sean Klein was very, very good as well. Ruan Quinn off the bench. We're starting to see Munster at their best when they're direct. Nankerville proved that. Klein proved that. Quinn. And in a game where, as myself and Ben mentioned before we came on air, they kind of overplayed a bit. There's always that
Mm.
little bit of just remind yourselves, when you're direct, you can do good things. Kane was a good example. Niall Scannell's break off the back of the maul. Munster, when they're direct, are good. They probably just overcomplicated it at times.
Yeah, I think that's an issue with every province at the minute. They're overplaying the ball. I think um I'm a really big fan of Mike Haley, and him playing direct off a big line as well is something that everyone like I love to see, and I'm not sure why he doesn't have many more Ireland caps because of how much he's played well in terms of that sense as well. But yeah, playing direct, playing that front up rugby, when you say you have Nankerville, he's a big unit and also is really quick off that centre pace. It's one of those that we need to like sort of shovel on as well. Jean Klein as well, big ball carrier. You have all these players that if you play direct and don't overplay, which I'd say is probably easier said than done when you're in a crowd of how many, about 35-ish thousand, I'm sure the occasion gets to you, and I'm sure you really want to have that highlight reel moment, but which I'm sure it's really easy to say as somebody who we're all not professional sports people. I know my 10-pin bowling career didn't go that well, but it's one of those where I feel like of course you'd overplay. You're in a big crowd. You're in a historic venue. You're playing against a historic opponent, an English team playing in the Gaelic football stadium. You will overplay it, but once they got their minds together, you score 31 points at the end of the day. They only scored three. There was some really good defense from Munster on show there as well. So yeah, fair play.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And like Munster, like it was a very first minute penalty that Gloucester scored from. Apart from that, they didn't score the rest of the game. So it was a bit of a shutout. We probably just don't speak of it because I think in Irish rugby, it's so often like, well, Munster weren't great. Let's do that. Kind of like the vibe I always get is, that like Darrow Breen kind of like expression where it's like, sure now. And it's like, that's always the way Munster get treated.
Like I
And
do
I,
think
I actually think
it's
the
sorry.
provinces in general, but go on, Ben.
No, I think like for Munster weren't great for a lot of this game, but I think credit does need to go to Gloucester a little bit. They handled that first half and what was an awful wind actually really well. Like Gloucester at no point for that game said we're coming to Cork to win the game. That wasn't their plan. They wanted to spoil ball for 60 minutes, keep the ball away for 80, and if they got a penalty, they take the penalty. Their defensive set, if anyone has watched it, they went for a really high line for their centres and one winger. But even they didn't drop their fullback the whole way back either. It was a really nice, almost counter press system, which we
Yeah.
don't see
It
all
was
that
it was
often.
forcing you back inside, and that's where Munster got the
Yeah.
most change as it happened in that first half when they kind of cut against the grain. Seeing it from Casey, from Ahern, from Nankiville, they were forcing you back in field. It was like, and it was a kind of hybridy type of set, I suppose.
Yes.
But I do want because that is straight from the words of Simon Zebo and Matt Bannahan, who were on commentary. And I watched this game back, and it's funny because you always see with Premier, I think they get an awful lot of like unfair shtick, to be honest. Like they are a lower budget entity than say TNT and Sky Sports. But I watched this game back and I was like, this just works. Like Ryan Nugent's one of the best commentators in the game. Top Banhan and Zebo were excellent together. And I suppose, Adam, I'll let you start things off here. You discussed this yourself and Hugh about the Premier Sports product and if it's working or that. But this is kind of where it works. Simon Zebo's in his element. Matt Banhan is really concise, really knows what Gloucester are trying to do. Got one of the best in the business on comms. And you were reminded of the conditions, of the stakes, of how important it was, of the history. It was sold right. And yeah, it's easy for us to say that. But this was kind of a reminder that when Premier do it right, they are very, very good. And they don't get enough praise for that.
Yeah, when Premier do like me and Hugh had that discussion on the United Rugby Rewind a couple of weeks ago when we were sort of talking about how it might be a sense that Premier need to grow into it because they sort of were just not handed it, but they were sort of given it so suddenly when they had this whole Champions Cup and Challenge Cup thing that they must have thought, right, okay, we need to sort out all of this. And what one of our main discussion points was the fact that they've just sort of pulled in all the TNT ones in and set them up in different places around the Premier Sports. But as we said, like we know that Premier can do a good product with the URC. We've seen it. We've seen how good their analysis is, how in depth their analysis is, and also as well as some of the former players that they get on, it provide really really good. I'm thinking the likes of. You've got Simon Zebo, for example, for instance, at Munster, a bit of a Marmite player back in the day, but he offers really good insights. It like really good in-depth analysis. You've got the likes of Stephen Ferris, who's more Marmite now than he is ever, but he sometimes would offer little bits of little bits of like here and there, actual stuff about rugby. But once it's done right, that product of Premier Sports is worth its money, and you do understand why the likes of loads of rugby channels are shifting over to that sense, in that direction.
Yeah. And like Ben, we've spoken about it so often. Like we want to see characters, we want to see rugby on the same channel, we want to see all the competition together, we want to see all this. And then we get it, and it's like, don't like this guy, don't like this guy. Oh, this was poor. And like, yeah, there's been some technical issues which are really frustrating, like with the Toulouse game last week. But like when you have someone like Simon Zebo and he's going up, he's having a conversation with JJ Hanrahan and Mike Haley and Jack Crowley, and you're getting more off these guys than you would in a stilted press conference. We as viewers get more from that. And it's the same when Ryan Wilson does it. I never liked Ryan Wilson on the pitch, but Ryan Wilson is a fantastic broadcaster.
Mhm.
Like, call a spade a spade. He's a fantastic broadcaster. And they've found that balance now. And you'll have the likes of Bernard Jackman could stand beside Johan van Graan or beside Leo Cullen, have a chat with them. And, Sebo with his interviews, Wilson with his, Johnny Beattie is excellent on pitch side as well. Go on just before,
Uh,
go on.
Paul Marshall as well also shows up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
asks really good questions, and you're like, that's Paul Marshall, but he's doing really well in that journalist position.
And it works. And it works. And that's the thing, Ben, because we've been crying out for all this. We've been crying out for charisma and for, a bit of humor, a bit of fun, not take yourself too seriously. Premier Sports have found a good balance there. Yes,
yeah.
they've got guys like Delalio, who you associate with old rugby, with the 90s rugby, early 2000s. But they've also got Zebo, Wilson, Barkley, guys like that, who sell the game without trying to sell the game. And surely, if nothing else, if you take nothing else from this conversation, surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, Premier have done what I think a lot of fans have been crying out for years, especially in Ireland. It's like Irish people know we have RTE that doesn't do an awful lot of let's have fun with this. They will do, we're showing the game and we're going to have two
It's very
pundits.
BBC.
It's very BBC. It's very old school Sky Sports. And Premier have said, look, we're not going to do that. They've brought in, and Munster BV fine, they've brought in Simon Zebo, who is that person that you can latch onto. And even if you find the game awful, you will have a laugh at Zebo on comms. They've found something that will get people staying on that little bit longer. Like, I'm someone who watches 80 minutes. I watch 90 minutes of football and I turn it off. I don't need to hear someone in Sky Studio tell me why this pass was excellent. I put on Premiere and I will leave it on for 10 minutes more because I will listen to Simon Zebo. I will, for my sins, listen to Austin Healy. I will listen to Lawrence Delalio because they add that little bit of personality that we haven't had in rugby ever, really. And as we've said, there's issues with Premier. Anyone in the Republic of Ireland will know they have the 3 o'clock Premier League football, and the rugby is levels ahead of that. So if they can keep going in the direction, get somewhere near where TNT had, but yeah, keep it fun. No one wants to sit there and see 5 lads in suits tell us, look at this lovely crossfield kick. Let's have a bit of fun with it.
That's it. And it's certainly going in that direction. I give them massive credit. And like, it's not about like not trying to be like I'm the smartest individual in the room, and so it's okay for me to say I don't like this guy and I do like this guy. That shows how smart I am. I don't like every pundit they have. I don't like every commentator they have. But at the same time, listening to Miles Harrison and Ryan Nugent talk European rugby, just it makes me feel young again. Like it's like, oh, we're back. And like I'm sitting down like beside the telly, which is actually right beside me. And it's like, oh, I remember the highlights and I remember, it was a big deal. But at the same time, as you said, those lads in Sky, they were in suits. RT, they're in suits. Now it's like, it's the baseball cap and it's the jackets and it's whatever else. And it
It's the
just
little
adds
tweed cap, which is genuine. I
yeah.
need to find one because they're excellent.
Some of them are quite nice, in fairness. Like even Delalio's the last day was quite nice. It
Like,
suits certain type of head. But we'll move on because we also have a Leinster game to get into. And to be fair, the Leinster game very well covered. Again, Miles Harrison, best in the business. Ian Madigan, friend of the show, kind of tangentially. But
I didn't know that. Wait,
what?
well,
hold on.
you
That's
know
a
that now.
Ulster legend. He knows
The
me.
man who
Oh, fuck.
kicked Ulster into a Pro 14 final during COVID, a game I missed. But we'll stay in the Champions Cup. Leinster coming from behind to defeat foes Leicester 23-15 in an old school Heineken Cup throwback in Welford Road. And Adam, I'll let you start not because you're the most Leinster affiliate person here, but you are. But an important away win for Leinster because they were behind. It did look like they were going to struggle to get out of this one. Get the job done. And again, there's always something to be said for that, to just get over the line and to learn something from games like this.
Yeah, legally yes, mentally no. Much like Ian Madigan, stand up for the Ulstermen. Anyway,
Oh God.
but yeah, they had a bit of a turbulent time in the first half, and that came with Jimmy O'Brien and Jack Conan's injury in the first half. Losing those two players straight away for any team, I would say would cause a bit of trouble. Like the likes of Ireland as well. You would argue that if you lose those two type of players, you'll have a struggle. You'd have a struggle there. But yeah, it was a tale of two halves. Leinster played a very well, as I said, it's a very worried first half because they didn't really quite get their game plan going. Losing those two players of their caliber, it made it a bit frantic at the start. But with their bench and them coming on, you had the likes of Dan Sheehan coming off the bench. You had Boyle, you had Samani. If it's such a good bench to have coming off for a team that could change. You talk about the bomb squad and you talk about all this, and Leinster had that with Dan Sheehan alone on the bench. Max Deegan played a very good game coming off the bench as well. To try and sturdy the ship. But Joe McCarthy as well. I think he came off the bench as well. He also
No,
had
McCarthy started. It was Mangan that was on the bench, but the two McCarthys in
yeah, the
particular,
two McCarthys, yeah.
arguably Leinster's two best players
Yeah.
out in the field.
100%. Like I feel like Paddy McCarthy's having the season that everyone dreams of. He's playing it exceptionally well in that loose head position, and also Joe McCarthy had a stormer of a game as well. I think I actually quite enjoyed about this game was the amount of fights. It was really just like
God,
every single, yeah, there was just every single there was a fight. It just had some intense. It had some meaning to it. You had James Lowe fighting everyone at one point, but but yeah. It was a good win for Leinster. We say that as annoying that they can be, that Leinster are very good at winning, and they've won a game where they were about 8-ish points down, and they still won it. They've got that formula there, and Rico Wane had a decent enough game as well. Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
it was fine. Nothing about it was brilliant from Leinster. I will stand off in terms of the Drew McCarthy's. Thought Slimani made a huge impact off the bench. Very little of it was excellent from Leinster, apart from those guys. But they got the job done. And like it's weird because it was only now when I look back at it, I was like, I forgot that Leinster scraped past Claremont and La Rochelle last year. They arguably could have lost both of those on round 2 and 3, actually, coincidentally last year as well. Completely forgot about that. But there is something to be said for performances like that. And Ben, when you kind of subtract the likes of Joe McCarthy, Paddy McCarthy, Rabbi Slimani, Jack Conan, thankfully he passed his return to play protocols after the game, or his return his HIA test, which is good. But without some of those guys, it's a good, important away win. And again, that like old school Heineken Cup game. But I just want to ask you on something because we discussed it after the game in the group chat about is this Leinster's skill set has gone backwards or are they just under pressure? You with the stat, Leinster had like what was it, 200 meters made or something like that versus 30.
Yeah.
Leicester employed a bend don't break defense. So when Leinster got the opportunities, they were under pressure. So it's a bit of both. Where would you land on that? Like, do you think there's an element of forcing it because they didn't get the opportunities? Was it more on Leicester? Was it more on Leinster? How did you kind of see that?
Like, so we mentioned meters just at full time. It was 111 meters for Leicester Tigers, 470 for Leinster. Like, if you just present that stat to someone and 132 carries versus 64, that tells you it's a bonus point win. Because you Leinster went over, employed their game plan, and did exactly what they should be doing. I think Leinster forced it. They're guilty of forcing this. I think the start of the season is starting to weigh on them a little. They're
Mm.
already trailing in the URC. I think David actually said it last week, they were sloppy against Quins in what ended up being a BP win. Fine. It's not the Leinster we're used to seeing. They're not playing a Leinster quote unquote brand of rugby. The
Well,
first half here,
far from me to ask the Munster man for his thoughts on Leinster, because in certain areas that would be blasphemous. But question for you: we're heading into a November break where Leinster will be asked to rotate some of their main guys, and I know it's a bugbear for Leinster fans. It'll be a bugbear for Munster fans this week as well because the likes of Tom Farrell will have to be rotated. He played 90 minutes across 5 weeks. Do you think Leinster could actually do with just having full control over their players over the next few weeks and having, you know, Josh Van der Fleer doesn't need more minutes, but Caelan Doris might, and
yeah,
Prendergast doesn't, but Gibson Park, or Prendergast may, but Gibson Park doesn't. Do you think they'd be better off having full control and like, especially with their start of the season?
yeah, like I don't. My thoughts on IRFU player management will come to at a different point anyway. I do think Leinster need and probably should have a different management structure than the rest in terms of player management. They lost what half their squad to the Lions,
Yeah.
another 20 or so players to November
24
internationals
to 24 to the November, I think.
to November. I mean, there's a point when Cullen has to sit there and say, look, I can manage my own players. I know what I'm doing. We have to get wins in the URC. Leinster have two incredibly tough interpros in the next 4 weeks. Um, Friday is a huge game for their season, and then ideally they rotate to St. Michael's College for the 27th of December. But yeah, you're right. There's a point when Leo has to be able to say, look, if I have to rotate the way you want me to rotate, I'm playing one game with an academy front row and an academy pack. He can't. He can't. Like, I would love to say, oh yeah, Leinster have to do it, but Cullen knows his players, Cullen knows his team. Gibson Park probably doesn't need as much to rest. Caelan Doris needs game time at this point.
Mm. And he'll be asked to be rested for
He'll
two
be asked to
games.
be, he'll be asked to be rested. Sam Prendergast would probably be asked to be rested
Yeah.
for 2 games. Most of their backline will. I'm not ever going to say I wish they didn't have to do it because that would be against my nature in general. But there's a point when Leinster have to say, look, we're going to
But
be
from
down
a
to nothing.
fundamental standpoint, like we've had this discussion before, and we fundamentally we want to see 4 successful provinces and 2 successful national teams. We've never swayed away from that. We take the piss out of each other and we get feral in the group chat that we have. But we never sway away from that. And I think with Leinster, as you said, does Caelan Doris need to be rested in the next 2 weeks? No, like he
Yeah.
hadn't played for 6 months. Like if you're Thomas Ramos or if you're I don't know, Matthew Jalibert, you must be looking at these guys going, what in the name of God? Do you know what I mean? And I know it's not the same because obviously these Leinster lads, they only play tough games. And this, I'll get onto that in a minute. It was a tough game. But like, you'd need to get, like, Leinster need minutes. Leinster
Yeah.
look off the pace.
They
We're
need
in
minutes in the
December.
Leinster system. It's
Yeah.
fine saying they've
100%.
played however many minutes. I'm sure Gibson Park has played already hundreds of minutes since this season technically started in the Lions store. How many minutes has he actually had in UCD with this first string Leinster team? It's not going to work. There's going to come a point when, and it could happen against La Rochelle, it could happen over Christmas. They're an undercooked team. Telling them we need to rest you for another 2 games isn't going to help them in any sense.
Yeah.
No,
I think
exactly.
I think you sort of seen all of this happen, and that sort of culmination in that was the Northampton game and the start of this season with, you had a strongish Leinster squad go to South Africa to get nilled. Do you know what I mean? It's such an interesting way of balancing it out, and when you look at the longevity and how short players actually play, in their careers. You need those players to be playing those big games because that's what they're getting paid for. It's the Irish, yeah, as we say, it's the RFU system. It's really confusing, but as we all said, we want 4 teams to do well. We want the Irish provinces to do well. Of course, we're playing Leinster next week. Do I want to see Doris play? Yeah, because I want to see our players play against some of the best players in Ireland and also an Irish captain trying to get minutes because we're going to be so undercooked. He's going to be so undercooked by February at the rate it's going if he plays twice between now and February.
And we're seeing the Lions hangover is slowly becoming a real thing among players in Ireland. Like there are players who need a rest. From Munster POV, Tigers needs a week off. Like anyone in European rugby will say he needs a week off. The Lions need a week, sure. But Leinster's whole system, and unfortunately the Irish system is a product of it, is based on this cohesion and these players getting minutes together. And if Doris doesn't play over Christmas, we have to go to the stad. We have to go to Marseille or Bordeaux, sorry, on a Thursday night in February, where these guys won't have played any minutes.
Yeah, especially on a Thursday night
Brilliant.
as well. Thursday night,
Yeah.
Saturday game in February. That's
Embarrassed.
against France and against France as well. Like that's like main
Yeah.
Saturday night main event.
I'm a little
live
scared.
podcast.
I'm shaking here, guys. I'm shaking.
Live,
But
live podcast, imagine.
do you know what? If the FFR want to fly us over to Paris on the Thursday evening, on the 5th of February, will I say no? Not a chance. Not a
Can we
chance
get
will
our
I say
recent
no.
can we get our recently discovered friend of the podcast on the buzzer? He didn't play in
Who?
France. He didn't play in France. Oh,
Oh,
never
sorry.
mind.
Yeah, bad dog.
Oh, never mind.
Just to kind of jump back in and like completely agree with the points he made off the back of that one. For Leinster, this was an old school game. Under lights, Welford Road, cracking atmosphere. Like, and the way rugby has gone, the current shape of the game, what's being pushed is very like old school rugby as well, like set piece heavy, kicking game heavy. And Leicester pitched up, and like this is a Leicester side, real Ollie Chesham, George Martin, and Jock Van Portfrey, but they pitched up. They played really, really good stuff. And I was listening to someone discuss the difference in the Irish and English system recently, and they discussed how essentially in England they have their Ted Hills, their Arthur Clarks, their Ollie Cracknells, guys that we don't necessarily produce that many of in Ireland, that they just have it coming out their ears, these big men, because they just have more amounts of them. They just have more to choose from. And when you see it with Leicester, it's like they pitched up. Like Nicky Smith was excellent. Joe Hayes was excellent in this game. And I do really wish that we got more of these games in the Champions Cup. Now, don't get me wrong. The Leinster of 2 years ago win this game by 15 points, probably. And they probably don't trail for a large session of it. That's where I think Leinster progressed. But in saying that, am I going to say oh, Leinster are poor, Leinster this, Leinster that, and not acknowledge the fact that this was one of only 3 competitive games over the weekend in Europe. Um, no, I'm not. This was one of only 3 competitive games in Europe, and we'll have to discuss that. And the next game we will discuss wasn't competitive either. But before we move on to talk about the 2 Challenge Cup games, just a reminder to subscribe to the Global Game Night to get all the latest content. Here, I'm sure there'll be some Christmas specials. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I
Just
wonder when that
saying.
will be.
I wonder when that
What?
will be. I wonder when I'm recording that one. Oh, sorry, I said too much. And as we always say, if you can share this show with one friend or even leave a comment, it makes a huge difference. But from Welford Road, formerly known as Walker Stadium, I think it used to be back in the day, back in like way back in the day.
No, that was King. That
That
was
the
that
King
was the
Power.
Leicester. That
Oh,
was the
was that
King
the King
Power.
Power?
It's
Okay,
the Maori,
scratch that.
the Maori Woods or
Mattioli
whatever.
Woods or something like
Mattioli
that.
Woods. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought there was a
the ring
Walker's
around
tie-in,
the ring around
but
the Rosy
The
Woods.
Gary Lineker Stadium, it's fine. It was
the
called the
guy,
Gary
the
Lineker.
Ireland,
Everyone will be
the
happy.
Jamie Vardy 12 goals in 12 games stadium. I'll complete it. But yeah, we'll move on to Galway, to the Galway Sports Ground, now known as the Dexcom. This is why we need David
Did
here
we
for
get?
a bit.
Do we get our first footballer? Do you remember them?
Jamie Vardy's not a member. It's way too soon, Adam. It's way too soon.
Does
We're
anybody
gonna
remember?
Now we're
Does
gonna talk about Connacht, okay? Other Irish podcasts don't, so we're gonna do that. Um, they crushed Black Lion of Tbilisi 52-0 on Saturday night. Now, as I said, I was in Cork. I watched this one back. Since then, big win. Uh, on one side, Connacht scored 50 points in absolutely torrential conditions. Very good. The other side, Black Lion, I thought you were better than this. I genuinely thought you were a good team. I don't know. I was more disappointed in Black Lion than I was happy with a rotated Connacht scoring 50 points. I should be more happy that a
There's a
rotated Connacht
point
scored
last
50
week
points.
where I said I think Black Lion could give them a run, and I'd just
I
like to
think
say
you
I've
did.
never been more wrong.
I
that's
actually,
the rugby
actually,
hipster in us.
tangent. I'm in a group chat with a lot of good rugby fans. We do a predictor league every week, and someone tracks it on Excel. I was trying to remember who Connacht were playing for my prediction. So because of that, I wrote down Black Lion, and I'm the only one who got it wrong because I wrote down Black Lion instead of Connacht. My Super Brew said Connacht by like 40 points. I was pretty close. But anyways, I think they may have just they must have thought I was taking the piss and then was like, ah, sure, we'll just count it anyways because I won it last year, so I don't really mind. But yeah,
Humble
no,
brag.
huge humble brag, mic drop, boom, huge win for Connacht in the Dexcom. Paul Boyle with a hat trick. He is a man in great form. I was on the presser today. One particular journalist really wanted to talk about Paul Boyle, like really wanted to talk about Paul Boyle. One particular journalist, and I was like, okay, we get it. You've got your article written, but a huge win for them, and they were absolutely excellent. And I suppose, Adam, like not much you can take away from games like these, especially when like they still had Blade and Carty and Boyle and Janssen all playing. And we'll get on to the props in a minute. But when you've got a URC run of Dragons, Ulster, Leinster, and then your 2 European games after that of Montpellier and Montauban before Leinster again, to get a win like this where everything just works for about 40, 50 minutes, that's good. Like, I know if it was Leinster, we'd probably be a little bit more critical, but like for Connacht, they don't score 50 points that often. So it is good that
No.
they got a hit out like this.
Yeah, especially in like torrential rain that they've experienced in Galway, playing a team that had an old Aironi jersey as their strip. It was one of those. It was one of those. It was one of those. That's my. Do you remember It's a team.
Yes,
Anyway.
I do remember. Remember Ironi. I do.
But anyway, to put Connacht into 52-0, as you said, it's not a scoreline that we necessarily see a lot. They had a lot of standout players, and they had a player score a hat trick. They had, I think they had Shane Bolton score twice. Elo scored as well. Elo's looking to be an absolute talent. He's looking to be really good as well. I really hope he gets his shot in the Ireland camp. But yeah, it's the sort of the positivity that they need going into this next block of games, which is quite hard. Like I'd say Leinster at home, they'd be looking at that. It's really weird saying this, but all these sort of provinces are looking at Leinster being like the Interpros is a level playing field for everyone, no
Yeah.
matter what type of form
Until
you
you
come.
remind yourself that Leinster went unbeaten last year and Connacht won none of their 6. But apart from that,
Yeah.
it is very wide open. But
It is
no,
it's more like wide open on paper standards, because even then last year you'd say on paper the provincial statistics are a bit like, well, they could do it. But Leinster were very good.
yeah. Well, obviously Ulster last year didn't they lose like
Yeah, we lost
the last
everything but
four
like
games or
two.
something like that? So like
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously the season went
We
different for different teams. But just if you mentioned Sam Elo there, I had in my notes Bohan, Elo, Barrett. Ben, I'm sorry, I know you didn't used to play prop, but I'm going to ask you about props again. Billy Bowen on debut looked really, really good. Sam Elo looks better and better and better every single week. He should, if he's not starting for Connacht at the end of this season, we should be wondering if he should go somewhere else, to be honest. And Fiachna Barrett is about 125 kg. He's about 22 years of age. He's scrummaging like a behemoth. He's got ginger hair. He's from Mayo. What's not to love about the kid?
Speaking about it, like Samilo, again, a flashback to the Munster Connacht game where the kids were calling it ER. Excellent, was fantastic. I'm not a prop, but I love props. His scrummaging, his scrummaging, the way
You're
he
way too
gets.
tall to be a prop, Ben.
I'm way too tall to be a prop. I'm wide enough. I'm a bit too tall. We'll get there. It's fine. The way he binds is he could teach any prop in this country how to bind correctly and how to scrummage, and then you mash it with his carrying. It's like something a number eight could do. He carries like a man possessed. He's insane. Faking Barrett. Oh my God, that man. That man needs to leave Connacht and come to Limerick. We can give him chicken nut and teach him prop lessons. He's incredible. They've so much talent. Like I know we're saying it's Black Lion and they are what they are, and you can only beat what's in front of you. That Connacht front row was a clinic. It was
Yeah.
so good.
It was. And like we always talk about the Georgians and they're well able to scrummage and all that as well. But like with Barrett, and I don't want to let my Galway bias get in the way here because I'm a pro Galway man. And I have to punch down on the Mayo lads every once in a while. But he was excellent. And like there is a genuine conversation to be had at the end of the year that Connacht have four tight head props. And kind of similar to what we would have at Ulster or Leinster or Munster, wherever. Four, like we need to get that down to three. We need to get someone somewhere else. Like I would certainly be looking at like moving one of them out. Even if that is Ainger, for example. I think Jack Ainger could be a great signing for Munster, for example, and let Elo and Barrett push on and make the jersey their own at Connacht because they've been the ones pushing up the ranks, and maybe that'll be unfair on Ainger. It's not my
Also
intention.
just he's been around for years, but Dylan Tierney Martin on
Mm,
Saturday again,
sorry.
threw really well, carried really well, tackled incredibly well. Excellent game. I think he's easy to get forgotten about because he's been around for a couple of years and he doesn't necessarily start every game. But he was very, very good again. Sorry, you can go off your prop tangent. I'm sorry. Just he needed some love. He was
No, no,
excellent.
that's actually fair. Adam is after sending in a message, Fiachna Barrett to Ulster, question mark, and it's a picture of Fiachna Barrett alongside Richie Murphy. I'm not really sure who the other guys are. I think Gus McCarthy is one of them. Ruan Quinn there as well. Ruan Quinn looks fucking big in that. He looks bigger than the
I
props, but
I love the way that
maybe.
Richie Murphy looks so wee in that photo.
Ruan Quinn is
Richie
getting AI
Murphy
made
is, to
bigger
be
in that
fair,
picture.
Richie
Surely.
Murphy's smaller than me, and then you know yourself, I'm small, I'm short, so that's why Richie was always the kicking 10 in Clontarf. If anyone has ever watched Richie Murphy from his days in Clontarf, they're like, my God, could that man kick a ball? Seemingly, I don't know, it was before my time, but one more game
Not
to
that
discuss,
old.
lads. Yeah, but like it is before my time. Like he retired in like
Oh,
2010, so I don't remember AIL from the mid 2000s. We
oh
would go
man, I
to
was eight
go
lapping it
on.
up. I was
Hmm?
eight lapping it up. I was
Yeah,
8 years
exactly.
old in 2010. Yeah.
We'll go to the cap lastly as Cardiff clawed back a 12-point deficit to shock Ulster on home soil. Adam, I kind of have to start with you here, unfortunately, because it is your province. Oh, I just realized I did not make notes on this game. So we'll do it live. Adam, how do you lose a 12-point advantage with about 12 minutes to go?
Poor discipline, really poor discipline. I feel like we just sort of it was one of those where we went down 14-0 at the very start. We clawed it back, and it was one of those games where it was like, oh, Ulster have knew we're gonna just keep it in cruise control. And then all of a sudden somebody switched on a Dan McFarland sized switch, and it just sort of went It was one of those where I thought, I was watching it and I don't really feel numb at rugby games anymore because we normally feel like, you're fine. But when that kick went out, no, as soon as the penalty got called, I knew what was going to happen. Um, yeah, it was lack of discipline really done us there. I think we conceded 12 penalties and we also had two yellow cards as well. Um,
That's the thing that stood out to me when I went over. Like they didn't concede a huge amount of penalties. It was just two cards and a costly scrum penalty at the end. It's
yeah.
like when it's worth double, that's when it hits you.
Yeah, and especially because we speak so highly of Ulster in the Challenge Cup, I almost had to refund my tickets to Bilbao. But it was one of those. It was a reminder though about how this especially this squad and also Cardiff in general, are playing very good rugby. Our team is also playing very good rugby, but Cardiff in Wales. Last minute penalty. I think it was Angus Bell that could have gave away the penalty as well. It was one of those
It was
where
Bell and Maguire. I don't know
Bell,
which one the referee penalised. I thought both of them were under pressure, to be honest.
yeah, both of them were under pressure, so it was just kind of in general. But it's just really poor. It's really poor to sort of lose the head. But we had a rotated squad. We tried different things. We had the likes of Flannery and Connor McKee start. We had Shanners come off the bench, and also Humphreys as well on the bench as well. Like we had a pretty rotated squad. We did have Augustus and Bell on the bench, granted, but we also had the likes of Rory Maguire make his first game for Ulster. We also had the likes of Bryn Ward getting more game time. So
Charlie
there was
Irvine as well, Ben
Charlie Irvine.
Carson,
Yeah, Charlie Irvine, Ben Carson.
and Bradley
There was
McNamara as well. I knew there was
yeah,
someone I was forgetting until I looked it
Bradley
up.
McNamara,
Debutant.
Ben Carson had a pretty silly yellow card, to be honest with you, for a deliberate knock on. I always think that as a professional, as we say, we're not professionals, but I resort back to the Jimmy O'Brien sort of from last week. It was sort of like a Jimmy O'Brien from last week where he
I
sort of
remember thinking
hand
if
out.
he'd actually reached out properly, he might have got it as well. Like Carson didn't need to
Yes,
just kind of
yeah.
do a jump in the air for
Yeah,
it.
it jumped
Yeah,
in the air and it made it look obvious. It is almost like if he had two hands to the ball, it's not deliberate. Do you know what I mean? That's the whole thing,
Like he
isn't
had
it?
enough space to be able to get away with it. And he just
Yeah.
decided to do oh, I'm doing a star jump instead.
But to be fair, on the Ben Carson note, it's pretty good to see Ben Carson
Yeah.
playing for Ulster as well. I think he's a classy operator with the ball, and of course we've got so many centers now that I think at any other stage of Ulster he'd have 50 caps by now. Do you know what I mean? But right now we're so lucky to have all these centers, and they're all coming back at the right time. We had no Stockdale as well, and Stockdale was a pretty big player in terms of carries as well. Werner Koch played really well. It's almost like I really hope Werner Koch signs on. He's just an absolute brute. But fair play to Cardiff. They went out, they played their game. Winning in the last minute at home in a European match for fans of Cardiff. I can't imagine anything better.
yeah. A
Especially
club
against
with
us.
great history in the
Yeah,
Challenge Cup, it should be
exactly. Yeah.
said. But I suppose Ben, just to kind of to wrap things up almost for this evening, like for Ulster, they're still in it. Like this, the annoying thing is this may hinder their knockout stages. But their next two games are Cheetahs away in Amsterdam, which unfortunately we haven't got a sponsor to send Adam just yet. Maybe. Maybe that'll be our Christmas present for Adam. And then they got Stade Francais at home, which more than likely will decide who tops the pool.
Yeah.
Because Stade also play Exeter who are flying high. So like it's still right there. They're on 7 points because they got two from this one. It's still right there for them. And maybe if the other pools go their way, maybe they'll still be a top seed. And then who would be afraid of Ulster? Most teams.
Like you assume Ulster are going to have 12 points coming out of it by the end of the Amsterdam game. They'll get the
Yeah.
five out of that. It'll be 12 points, relatively comfortable. And once, as Adam said, once they switch off the Dan McFarlane switch and turn back on the Ulster 2025-26 switch, they'll be right back on let's win the Challenge Cup. I mean,
Hmm.
going to Cardiff, as Munster saw last year, is a difficult place to go when they start playing good rugby. When you get two relatively silly yellow cards and then give away another silly penalty, this is what happens. It doesn't define Ulster season. It was a sloppy game, a sloppy 20 minutes, but as we said, they rotated so heavily. Hey, go again.
Yeah, absolutely. Go again and see where the road takes you. But lads, we're going to do a little quick preview Adam's a little bit sidetracked there. We're going to do a little quick preview for next week. And once again, my notes have failed me because I have first up Leinster against Leinster. So my apologies to the fine listeners of Ulster that we have and our fine guest from Ulster, or contributor. You're not a guest anymore.
Oh, I
Uh,
guessed.
First game of the weekend, Adam. Leinster against Ulster, Friday, 7:45 on TG4, Premier Sports and URC TV. This is I'm not going to go all the way and say it's a coin toss, but this should be tight.
Yeah, it should be tight. I think as an Ulster fan playing Leinster in Dublin, it's always that, sort of the elephant in the room of they always win when we're in Dublin, but there's always a lovely contributing factor that we have that James Hume photo where he goes like that. Um, so, as an Ulster fan, it's like it could happen. But yeah, it's going to be a big coin toss. I feel like if Ulster have all of our players back fit, I would want to see Angus Bell making his first start for Ulster because all of his appearances have came off the bench. I want to see the likes of Augustus play. I want to see a centre partnership of Postlethwaite and Hume or McCluskey. Depends on who we want on the bench. Um, as for Leinster, I feel like they would also see this as a pretty big game. I think they might, I think they might rotate for this game. That's my feeling. I think they might rotate. So if we have our first team and they're rotating, we might as well absolutely go for it and get at least 4 points out of it. And that's probably the most confident you'll ever hear me speak about Ulster v Leinster. But we need to build on from this loss this week, and I'm sure the lads are hurting from it, and I'm sure they're looking towards this game as this is the starting point. The Interpros are the start of our season in terms of how difficult they can be, and this is going to be our statement to the league.
Yeah, that's the thing. My big fear with Ulster is that they're flying high in so many stats and so many like eye tests that eventually it'll come crashing down. If it's not this week and we get a humdinger and it's like 30 to 28, even if it goes in Leinster's favour, great. Like, great. I'm going to miss the Saturday games because I'm up at an awards function. So, like, please just let this be the game of the week or the game of the year to round things off. Just for me. I don't really care about the rest of you. Just for me. But the next game on the agenda, and actually Ben is going to be there in Bridgend, is Ospreys against Munster, Saturday 5:30, only live on Premier Sports 1, which is also a hindrance to me because I won't get to see it live. Uh, thank God we're not doing a podcast next week. But a little teaser there.
What do you mean,
We're
Christmas?
doing a Christmas quiz for next week.
Christmas quiz.
I was gonna tease it in a few minutes, but Ben,
Ho ho ho.
Jesus Christ, Ulster says ho ho ho. Then Ospreys are a sticky opponent. They've won their last two, but you got to back Munster here. They got to get back on the horse, surely.
Yeah, you do. Look, it's actually an exciting game. Ulster played really well in the Ospreys even. It's not Ulster. Ospreys have played
Ho
really
ho
well.
ho.
Played really well in the Challenge Cup. We're going to have to rotate a little, as you said earlier. We won't have a centre who played 90 odd minutes for some reason. We won't have Jack. We won't have Craig. It gives a chance for I presume JJ and Paddy a reason to come in. We have Calvin Nash back. We have Fineen Wycherley back. Munster will rotate. We won't rotate all that much. We need to get the win that we lost against Stormers back. And actually, it's easy to say it's only Ospreys. It's not important. It's very important for the context of this season. We don't know how
It's
the Interpros
it's
are going to go.
important. It's important in the manner of because they lost to the Stormers. If they hadn't, you'd take a different view.
We
Isn't that
lost
it?
to the Stormers in that way, and then we had almost a similar 40 minutes against Bath, where it was like we had 80 minutes where nothing worked.
Mm.
Gloucester Park, it was its own thing. Vitally important game to put on a performance. Even if you don't win, you should have to perform. You can't let those 80 minutes happen again, particularly with what's happening on Saturday week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you would back Connacht to win, but sure we shall see there. And the final game then is Connacht against the Dragons at 7:45. That's on TG4, Premier Sports and URC TV. Connacht are in a weird situation where they beat Cardiff and the Scarlets in away from home last year, but they did also lose the Ospreys away. They lost the Ospreys away from home this year. They lost to Cardiff away from home this year. They're starting to become unstuck a little bit in Wales, and obviously not something you want because the Welsh sides are typically the punching bag. They kind of are this season. Like Ospreys are second from bottom, third from bottom, something like that. Like the Dragons, I'm pretty sure are bottom, if not 15th place. So got to get a win. Realistically here, we're guaranteed at least one Irish loss, obviously, because there's an inch pro in there. But you've got every single team is going to be focused. They've got to win. Like every single one of them are going to be saying to themselves, they've got to win. Connacht are no different. Dragons will be sticky, but I would back Connacht to win, and our predictions, of course, will go live at the end of the week. But gentlemen, we'll leave it for tonight. Now, I've got a special announcement that people at home are not going to believe. We will be back next week for a very special end-of-year quiz, which is being recorded tomorrow night. But we're going to put it up for you next week before Christmas. We're not sure if we'll be back before New Year's. We will see. It's a very hectic time of year. Adam's got to move countries, and the rest of us some of us have got pints to drink, and others have got people to see.
Visit my home country and then come back about.
Adam is returning to his home planet.
People to see with pints.
People to see with. See, there we go. That's the exact mantra. The Interpro Show. We are a podcast that wants you to see people with pints and talk about rugby. That's all. That's all you need to take away from this podcast.
And talk about how Declan Fitzpatrick had a really good
Adam, please. Adam, shut up. just shut up, please. Gotta get this done. But Adam, Ben, thank you so much for joining me. As I said, we'll be back next week. Not sure when it's going to go live. It'll go live before Christmas, I think. And tune in. And of course, if you're heading to any of the Interpros, do enjoy. Maybe tag us online if you want. We will hopefully be back to talk about it all. From all of us, including David, have a very good Christmas. I'm sure I'll send that message out tomorrow/next week. But from me, Kieran, and from all the lads, until next time, take it easy.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.